In a world filled with noise and uncertainty, tune into the Voice of Reason with Chaplain Ingrid Gentles every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us for uplifting conversations, inspiring stories, and biblical insights that will empower you to navigate life challenges with faith and confidence, where faith meets reality. Join the conversation on HGG Radio, live on YouTube, and social media. Don't miss it.
Welcome. So today our topic is about women who are in relationships and are suffering in silence. Women in relationships that are suffering in silence. Whether you are in a marriage or whether you are in a committed or long-term relationship, this applies. And so if any of this resonates with you, why don't you click on the button below, the like button below, and at the same time, why not just subscribe to HGG Radio and become a part of our HGG Radio family? We would love to have you. Keep in mind that HGG Radio station is a Christian radio station. I believe it is fitting for us to give honor to God. And God, who is the creator and who ordained marriage between a husband and a wife, is to be recognized prior to us going through this conversation. Remember that when God ordained marriage, he gave us specific instructions as to how we are to approach marriage. And anytime we are not in alignment with the word of God, we are no longer in his perfect will. And as a result, which could explain why some women are experiencing suffering in their marriage. So we are going to look at this topic in depth because this topic is getting a lot of traction out there. I just want you to know that there's a lot of traction, which means that there's a need for us to talk about this. And it's interesting because unfortunately, it seems to be plaguing, from what I'm seeing, women in particular. And so we are focusing on the women today because this particular topic seems to be plaguing them in specifically. So we're going to talk about how we can help you to alleviate some of these unfortunate experiences that you're experiencing and see how we can be of help to you in this situation. So women in relationships experiencing suffering, and they're suffering in silence. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What are the reasons, some of the reasons why women are quietly suffering in silence in their relationships? And I believe it's important and it's imperative for us to understand the why, the reason. Because if we don't understand the reason or the why, we can't actually fix the problem. And so we are going to look at some of the reasons. But prior to even doing that, I just want to just say this because I think it's really important that we understand. Marriage requires compromise. Marriage requires sacrifice. But suffering is not what God had in mind when he created marriage for a husband and a wife. Actually, both parties should be mutually benefiting from the sanctity of marriage. And so when I hear the word suffering, it causes me to pause because when I think of suffering, I think of words like, oh my goodness, my joy is gone. I am stuck. I have no way out. I feel like I'm in prison. That's what comes to my thought when I think of the word suffering. It's a very, very strong word. It's a very, very harsh word. And I would hate to think that there are women out there that are enduring and experiencing this. And just to think about, some of us have been married for a long period of time. And just to think that this could be plaguing someone for years upon years upon years, and they're just going through the process silently and quietly and smiling. You've got to understand that's got to do something to that person inside, slowly eroding their confidence and who they are. So, without further ado, let's jump into this topic. What are the whys? What are the reasons why a woman, particularly in this particular conversation, would stay in a marriage or in a long-term relationship suffering silently? And I believe one of the reasons that we need to look at is the word fear. Fear, fear, which is a word scripturally, as we know, the word of God says he did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So we know that fear does not come from God, right? And so when that spirit plagues us, it allows us to not be able to move ahead, not be able to move away from that situation. You're actually fearful, and when you're fearful, you actually cannot action what needs to be actioned and get the help that you need. So fear of what? What are some of the reasons? Fear of what? Fear of being alone, particularly if you've been married for a long period of time. You are so accustomed and used to having a spouse right by you. So fear of being alone, I could see, would be one aspect of why a woman would continue to stay in an unhealthy marriage, or deal with an unhealthy marriage and not seek outside help or outside intervention. So fear, crippling fear, gripping fear that is not from God, but from the enemy himself. And then there is also fear of the unknown. Oh my goodness. If I try to deal with this situation that I'm going through, what's going to happen? What if I have to make decisions? What if those decisions may require to take a stand? It could be also fear of retaliation from your spouse, fear of abuse from your spouse if you happen to be in a relationship of that nature. So fear is one of the factors that we need to look at. That's one of the whys, fear. And then we can also look at the other one, which is called shame. Oh my goodness. You know, there are so many of us. I've had my own experience with that myself, where, you know, you don't want anyone to know what is happening in your marriage or your relationship. You know, for me, it was pride, right? I'm just going to call it what it is. And so I was ashamed because I didn't want anyone to know that I was not, you know, there was I was not experiencing joy at some point later on in the marriage. I was not, the happiness was not flowing. You know, things were just not moving and working the way that God had intended, and the way it was when we had started out in the marriage. So, you know, the shame is a huge part also of why some of us women would endure and continue in silence and in suffering and going through the relationship or the marriage to ensure that, you know, we fit the what it should look like, right? And so shame is a big one. I experienced that myself, and that was because of my own sense of pride, which the Lord has dealt with and still working on. So we've talked about fear, we've talked about shame. What about judgment? Judgment. My goodness. Oh, again, part of the shame is judgment. What are other people going to think? What are they going to say? Oh my goodness. And so you get to the point now where you're focusing outwardly Your focus is outwardly on what people are going to think, as opposed to focusing internally as to what is going on within your relationship or within your marriage. And so, this thing about putting the power, giving people power over you because you are fearful of what people are thinking. And that is also something that will hold us back in getting the help that we need, in reaching out, in discussing it, in even making decisions that are required to be made. And so we need to really keep an eye on that. Low self esteem is another one that we need to look at. And I can tell you, if you have been in a marriage for a long period of time, I know I say long, when I think of long, I think of 25 years plus 20 years, a long period of time, and you have been enduring certain kind of abuse, whether it's emotional or physical, or, if you have been enduring something like that for a long period of time, I can almost tell you that your confidence will be eroded. There is no question about that. We're human beings. We are not designed to be constantly in a state of being, eroded. Eventually, that will take a toll on us. And the confidence that we should have in ourselves as a person will slowly start to diminish. Your light will slowly start to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. And again, that is not what God intended for marriage. Absolutely not. Marriage is there to benefit both parties, the husband and the wife. So if you are in that situation and the benefits are not mutual, notice I did not say equal. This is not a conversation about equal. This is about mutual, right? If it's not mutual reciprocation between both parties, then definitely you need to look at that. We need to look at that, because I can see where that also would sort of send someone in that quiet space, not wanting to speak, not feeling confident enough to speak up and advocate for yourself. And that could mean speaking directly to your spouse about how you're feeling, right? That could also be reaching out to leadership, to pastors, teachers, friends, family, being able to have a voice. Having a voice in your relationship is very important. That is empowering. And so I just want to just remind those of us who are going through any of this, and if this is resonating with anyone that is listening right now. And again, the conversation and the topic that we're talking about right now is women in relationships who are suffering in silence. Women in relationships who are suffering in silence. If any of this resonates with you, please continue along with us as we embark and continue on this journey. The next reason why I believe a woman would stay quiet and just continue in that suffering state is feeling of being rejected, rejection, avoidance, not having the support of the people around you that you require support from, and being ostracized because you are, in the Christian world, in the world period, but there's this thing about the Proverbs woman that every Christian woman wants to be, right? And we sometimes blur the lines and not realize that sometimes being that Proverbs woman doesn't necessarily mean that we are here to take any form of abuse or any experiences of your joy being taken away from you, because joy comes from the Lord, right? And so we don't want to give our joy away, right? And so I think sometimes we that line gets blurred, and we feel that we have to continue in this type of situation that is unhealthy or possibly even toxic. That is not what God intended. And so I just want to encourage anyone who's listening to recognize what God required for marriage. Marriage is absolutely a beautiful thing that God created, that He ordained for both male and female. And so it is not is His will, perfect will, for us to be suffering in our relationship or in our marriage. Again, the other one is retaliation. Some women may experience retaliation more from an abusive um, way, whether it be emotionally or physically. Again, instilling that fear that is inside of us that will not allow us to speak up and to rise up and to say, I need help, or to say, I'm not happy, or to say, we need to talk about this. And so, we have to be so cognizant of our situation and recognize what our reasons are, what our whys are, why we are continuing, and why we are subjecting ourselves to such an unfortunate and unhealthy experience, in our relationship or in a marriage. The next one I'd like to touch on is, which is a very important one as well, is that, women can feel trapped financially. Yes, that is a big one, right? You can feel trapped financially because you need your spouse's financial contribution in order so that you can live a good life, and in some cases, it may be that the man is the breadwinner, and which makes it very difficult for um, the woman, whether it be his wife or his, you know, um, long-term partner or his fiance, whatever category that you fit in there. Finance is a big one. Finance is a really big one, because especially if there are also children involved. And so, the whys are very, they're telling. It's clear. I could see it. We can't make judgments and say that we would never fall into these categories, because I'm pretty sure I can say I've fallen into two of these categories, and I've explained that shame for me was one of them, right? But you can see how I can really visualize and see how a woman may feel trapped and not knowing what decisions or what to do in situations where they are feeling fearful and experiencing suffering, and they're suffering in silence and in quiet. Just imagine, you get up and you get together and you get dressed and you go to church, and you come and you all present yourself to the congregation, and you're smiling and happy, and giving off this facade that all is well, when really and truly all is not well. And then you leave and you go home and you go back to that environment of feeling trapped, of feeling, I don't know, the word that I would probably want to say is lost, trapped, lost. That word suffering really resonates with me. And, suffering is such a harsh word. And so when I think about it, I cannot help but think of what some women are enduring in, over an extensive period of time in their relationship and in their marriage. And the other one, the other why, or the other reason why a woman would continue to suffer in silence in her relationship would be she's trapped emotionally. And I can tell you that was my second why that I experienced. You know, when you love someone, it is really hard. That love holds you, actually, that love that holds you hostage to the relationship, to the environment, because that love is covering all the hurt and the pain that, you know, some of us might have gone through, or some of us who are experiencing even right now or today. And so, you know, we cover our spouse with their shortcomings with that love, and that love, and hoping that there is going to be hope, that there will be a change in their behavior towards us. And so I see that love is definitely a huge part of that. I didn't want to give up that love. No way. I didn't want to give up that love. And people need to understand that even doesn't mean that because you are no longer in that relationship or in that marriage, that the love is gone. Absolutely not. You just put that love in a different place. But love just doesn't, real and true love doesn't just die, you know, just like that, right? And so when I really think about it on the grand scheme of things, love is a huge part. Women, we are emotional beings. We are emotional creatures. God created us. We are nurturers. We nurture. We want to help. We want to love. We want to nurture the family, nurture the children, nurture our spouses. That is the part of who we are. And the fact of the matter is, you know, the more I think about it, sometimes I wonder, because women are actually emotionally stronger than men. Men are physically stronger than women, but women are emotionally stronger than men. And so we have that capacity to endure, to endure, to endure, to endure, to endure, to endure, and to endure at whatever the cost. But what I would like to say to anyone that is listening here, if any of this resonates with you, or you are going through this is not God's perfect will for you as a wife or as a fiance. This is not His perfect will for us. And so while we understand the reasons, you know, the fear, shame, low self-esteem, judgment, rejection, retaliation, finances, and emotionally still being attached to our spouse, we still have a responsibility to ourselves, because, you know, the Word of God says that we are to love our neighbors as we love ourselves. Love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So if we are not able to find it within our heart to be compassionate and to love ourselves, it would be extremely difficult to get help, to address the situation, you know, that I am just, there's no joy, I'm suffering, I just need help. There's nothing wrong with reaching out and asking for help. You can start with your spouse, and if your spouse is not willing or unable to assist you in that area, then seek outside help. Seek outside help as to how someone can come in and help both of you guys. Have a mediator to have that discussion. The key is not to just throw away and walk away from your relationship or from your marriage. That is not what, we're all about here. There is always an opportunity if both people are willing to work things through. There's always an opportunity to fix it. Nothing is really unfixable if the two people are determined, willing, forgiving, loving, respecting, honoring each other. You can get back to that place, but it has to be a mutual thing. And so I just want to say that if any of this is resonating with you, and you are living and you are enduring, this quiet endurance, you're going through this process, I would like to say that save yourself, because when you save yourself, you are able to save your marriage. If you are unhealthy, you cannot save yourself. If you are unhealthy, you cannot save your marriage. So you need to get to a place where self-love has to come into the picture. And we just like to encourage you that, if there's something that you have taken away, one thing that you've taken away from this conversation that we're having today, just one thing, remember, self-love. Self-love. Love your neighbor. Love your husband as yourself. That is the word of God. So, ladies, my heart goes out to those of you. We will be having a part 2 discussion, and we will be continuing with a panel of guests as we continue to embark on this journey of women in relationships, in marriages that are suffering in silence. Life is short. Life is beautiful. Marriage is beautiful. That, in fact, is what God created it for. It is beautiful. And so we can turn something that is not beautiful into something that is absolutely beautiful and beneficial to both parties involved. So with that, I'm saying we are going to look forward to seeing you again as we continue on this journey and this discussion in terms of women in relationships that are suffering in silence. And I hope you will be able to join in with us as we continue and embark on this journey. Once again, life is beautiful. And when you are able to have a say in your relationship, when you're able to have a say in your relationships, whether that be in a marriage, long-term, even in friendships, It is an empowering thing to have and to do. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you once again.
In a world filled with noise and uncertainty, tune into the Voice of Reason with Chaplain Ingrid Gentles every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join us for uplifting conversations, inspiring stories, and biblical insights that will empower you to navigate life challenges with faith and confidence, where faith meets reality. Join the conversation on HGG Radio, live on YouTube, and social media. Don't miss it.